How doing, folks? I'm here with brother Luke McCann, and I'll be asking him some questions on the Legion of Mary. And as you know, the first one is how long you're in the Legion and what do you do?
And what do I do? So I joined the Legion of Mary almost 2 years ago. It's pretty much 2 years on the button. It'll be early September. So yeah, 2 years ago. What we do, we meet once a week and have a duty once a week. Our meetings on Monday evenings at 7:30 in Frankduff House, which is the headquarters of the Legion of Mary in Belfast. The meeting lasts for about 1 hour 30 minutes, and then there's a nice time for sort of downtime and conversation and building of our, I don't know, sort of family friend network that's developed throughout the Legion of Mary after our meetings. The meetings are great. They start with the Rosary. We end with an extra devotional doing the Divine Mercy Chaplet as well. So they're very prayerful encounters. And then they're also just good crack. We set a duty for the following week and we report our duty for the previous week. And what these duties are as such, it's basically a 2-hour commitment to going off in pairs, as Jesus instructed us to do. He said, whenever 2 or 3 of you are gathered in my name, I'll be there with you. So that's why Frank Duff, the guy who set up the Legion of Mary over 100 years ago now, he suggested that we'll go out in 2. So we always do that for our duties. And we do 3 main duties at the moment. So one would be door-to-door evangelization, which I would do a decent bit of. We typically lead with the Divine Mercy image. So 2 of us would go out around the parish of St. Peter's, knocking on the door. And here's the pitch that I would give. Say, hi, we're from the Legion of Mary. We're just going around the parish giving out a free image of the Divine Mercy. Here you are, there's no catch. And literally hand it over, and that's it, And then if the person chooses to receive our Lord into their home, there are graces that go with that, and then it just depends what direction the conversation will then go. Obviously, it's a real high priority. It's crucially important for us to encourage people to receive the sacraments of the Catholic Church. So quite often you would meet people who don't go consistently to Mass. They mightn't know that you have to go as a Catholic every Sunday and every Holy Day. And in order to receive our Lord, body, blood, soul and divinity in the Holy Eucharist and Holy Communion, you must be in a state of grace. And the only way that we can get into a state of grace is through going to confession, the sacrament of reconciliation, being absolved by our Lord through our priests in confession. So they're the sort of conversations that we'll have, and we'll let people know about Mass times, confession times, and just make them feel welcome, make them feel invited back to the church. Typically, if anyone has any objections, we talk about these and we explain, we're dealing with imperfect people, but ultimately God created the church. It's His church. It's not like a human creation. God created His church. The sacraments are perfect. And if we actually want to go to heaven, which is ultimately like our primary goal in life should be becoming saints and getting to heaven. That's it. So if we're serious about that and we don't want to go to hell for eternity, to call a spade, we don't talk about this enough. We need to be taking our faith seriously, and we do that through receiving sacraments. So yeah, we do door to door. We do public rosary in St. Peter's before Mass. So it's 7 o'clock rosary on a Tuesday night before the 7:30 p.m. Mass. And then in St. Mary's in Chapel Lane in town, 5:30, there's a public rosary. And then outside St. Mary's, there's a grotto of Our Lady of Lourdes on the Saturdays, 12:30 on Saturdays. So we do that as well. And then there's also a stall that we do where we're basically just giving out miraculous medals, different devotional books, sacramentals, things like Carmelite scapular, different things. And again, it's all just about trying to have opportunities for encounter with people, to make them feel loved, welcome back to the church. And if they're not Catholic, to consider joining the Catholic Church, and just challenge people where they are, make them think about these things, which, the world is so noisy and so full of entertainment and distractions. That's how the devil is primarily using, different tools to keep people away from God. In this era anyway. So we're just trying to bring people's attention back to the most important things and the salvation of their souls.
Amazing. So you gave a full explanation on our proceeding. What do we do? But then you didn't say, what do you do? What is your membership?
My membership of the Legion of Mary?
Yes.
What do you mean? Like as a...
You're an active member. Are you an officer?
I'm okay, sorry. So yeah, I'm a Praetorian. We'll talk about that as well. So it's a specific type of membership, which is a great privilege to be proud of. And it's, to be honest, this is like, I think like people talk about big moments whenever they come to God or come to faith. It's more of a kind of, you know, you would more frequently hear about Protestants talking about like, this is the date where Jesus saved me type thing. And I think that frequently we can have big moments of conversion in our lives. But really, it's an ongoing conversion that we need to be seeking. We need to be seeking to kind of continually grow in holiness effectively throughout the pilgrimage of our lives. And there are like, I suppose, a number of kind of key checkpoints that I would like regard as like moments that I can see clearly where my faith life kind of like, I feel like they just, God drew me in deeper and deeper, if that makes sense. And the main ones, off the top of my head, the main ones that I think that I can hang my hat on as such and I can recognize as key moments was when I started praying the rosary every day. My life changed through that. If you do that alone and you don't even know why you're doing it, do that. If you're not doing that already, it's incredible. It takes about 20 minutes a day, and it will change your life for the better and the lives of all those around you, your loved ones. Doing the 33-day consecration to St. Joseph, first of all, was like another spiritual checkpoint. And then doing the 33 consecration to Our Lady, which I just renewed it there on the Feast Day of the Assumption a few days ago. Previously, I'd done the 33 days to Morning Glory. This time, that was Father Michael Gately. This time was the True Devotion, St. Louis de Montfort's True Devotion. But sorry, why I started saying this was because about a year into my Legion of Mary membership, the president of our presidium at the time, Brother Green, Brian, was saying, you know, you can become a Praetorian. And basically what that is it's just additional commitments. So you have more prayers to do every day. So I think that the standard Legion of Mary membership, there are some prayers that you have to pray every day, like the Catena. Basically just the Catena, which is it's like the Magnificat, effectively. Our Lady's Magnificat. Is that correct? I think that's correct.
That's correct.
Whereas you basically have to say all the Legion prayers, including the Rosary, as a Praetorian, but you have to go to Mass every day. And that was the next sort of big checkpoint in my life as such. And I don't know, there was some novena book. It was a couple of things. I was discerning priesthood. I was sort of the beginning of that sort of period. This is about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago now. The spiritual director at the time recommended to go to Mass every day. And also I read a novena book of my mum owned. My mum said, it was talking about the importance of the Eucharist. It was saying that if people only knew that there's more treasure in the worthy receipt, as in receiving the Eucharist in a state of grace through confession, there's more treasure in one Eucharist than in all the treasures of the world. And there was something about that just hit me in a really powerful way at the time. And from then, really, like, I've really just tried to go to Mass every day. So I was already doing that anyway. And then when I realized the Praetorian membership, the main kind of thing was to do that, it seemed like a no-brainer to go for it. So yeah, active member. Basically, the commitments involve going to the weekly meeting, which is 2 hours approximately, an hour and a half meeting, but then it's approximately 3 hours with conversation and stuff, and then a 2-hour duty every week. Now, because there's so much going on in our presidium at the moment, and it's not, our president Philippe Cunha did a lot of allocutio. It's like a motivational speech kind of thing. It's like a 5 to 10 minute inspirational talk that he gives every week. It's part of the standard Legion of Mary weekly meeting structure. Felipe was doing a series of talks on commitment basically a few months ago, and I think that as a presidium, as a parish group in general, it sort of took us over the line from being like, oh, my commitment to the Legion of Mary is a meeting here and a duty there, to basically being like, you know, a bit like we're talking about tonight, do whatever Our Lady says, do whatever he tells you. We're basically sort of all in now. We are all in. So, yeah, I don't even look, I just sort of look at it now. I hope like what needs done and can I do it? That's more the way that we need. And I think that that's the way we're sort of meant to look at it, especially if we're serious about bringing Ireland back to the faith and growing in holiness ourselves and encouraging our loved ones back to the faith, especially when the world's so like incredibly mental at the moment. We need to be, look, God is goodness ultimately. Bad, evil in itself doesn't even necessarily exist. Arguably, I heard a priest talking last week. He said it's the lack of good. It's the lack of God. It doesn't need to exist in and of itself as such. And our world, our country, which, you know, for 1500 years was Catholic, Christian, you know, in the space of 50 years has gone the complete opposite direction, and the world is falling apart. People can't put two and two together. They seem to think that like continuing to move further away from God will in some way help things. And like, it only takes you to look and see at the moment they're trying to tell children as young as 5 that pornography is healthy for them and talk about masturbation and things like this. You know, our world has gone completely and utterly bonkers. And the only antidote to that as such is to lean into God. So what better way could you spend your time than being in the most well-known, not that being well-known, the most successful and effective lay movement in the Catholic Church the world over for the last 100 years. Like, it's the best place to be. So, yep.
And you were a treasurer.
And I'm a treasurer, sorry. So I'm a treasurer. So that's the last one. I've been talking too long. Within each Legionary Presidium, so parish group, you have 4 officers. I don't know how many people we have in our... The other thing is, when I joined the Legionary, there were like 6 or 7 people in our Presidium, and we were meeting on Zoom meetings because it was like during lockdown. Now there's like 20. So it's brilliant how much it's increased, just in terms of there's so much more liveliness, and, you know, you're learning from each other, and it's good fun, and there's people of all ages. It's great. But so within all the Presidia, you have 4 officers. So there's president, Gustavo's our secretary, we have a vice president, and then a treasurer. So I'm our treasurer. It's definitely the easiest of the 4 officer roles. But basically each week, because we don't take money off people if we're giving things out like miraculous medals and the likes. It basically comes from donations that we're given. So I basically carry around, it's called like a secret bag. It's called a secret because every week people like put a donation in, but they do it anonymously in such a way you don't know who's given what. And I just basically do the books to keep that updated in terms of money coming in and expenditure. It could be rosary beads, frames for the Divine Mercy images and the like. But as a result of being an officer, it means that I sit on the comitium. So as well as our presidium, the parish group, once a month there's a meeting of the comitium here in Down O'Connor, which is basically the diocese. It's sort of the greater Belfast area. The 4 officers of each presidia meet once a month to discuss kind of more diocesan-wide issues, and there's a focus typically each month on one of the individual parish groups, just so everyone knows how everyone else is getting on. And there's different kind of initiatives that have some sort of cross parish work where you can support one another and see where people might need a bit of help. So yeah.
Great. You gave a full explanation on our proceeding and then on the Legion of Mary for people out there who never heard about the Legion. Eventually, I get to the second question, that is, how do you become a legionary brother?
You just show up. That's it. How did I become a legionary? Or
Someone invited you?
How did I become? Oh, it was ridiculous. No, my friend wanted to do it. Basically, it was the Morning Star. It was another one of the Presidium. The Morning Star hostel was started up by the Legion of Mary. Is that correct? I think about 70 or 80 years ago, and so it's the one Presidia in Belfast where it's not just evangelistic, effectively. But you're doing a real. So I suppose there's it's like the shape of the cross. You know, you need to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind and all your soul, and you also need to love your neighbor as yourself. So it's more focusing on loving neighbor in that sense and looking after people who find themselves in difficult situations for all sorts of different reasons. So that hostel work really was sort of attracting one of my friends in particular, and we were kind of on this faith journey together. So he suggested going. But whenever we actually phoned the number, it was Michael O'Reilly who answered the phone. So we thought we were phoning the Presidia attached to the Morning Star, but because of lockdown, it wasn't actually meeting at the time anyway, I don't think, or something like that, or they weren't active in the hostel. So Michael suggested coming to the St. Peter's Presidium meeting. So we went to our first meeting on Zoom, and about halfway through the meeting, for whatever reason, my friend disconnected. He never came back. 2 years later, I'm still here. So if Mary wants you here, quite often you're just here and you're like, hang on, how did I get here? But if you are considering it, just do it. Take this. If you're still watching this now, and it's a very random video that's probably not watched by many people, and you're this far into it, and you're thinking, should I join it? Our Lady's calling you. This lady here, Our Lady of Knock, is calling you to join Queen of Peace Presidium.
So why are you a legionary?
Ultimately, I just feel called to. I feel like this is where I'm meant to be at the moment. You know, it's better for my own personal holiness and growth. It's better for my own, I suppose, will be in general, for my own vocation throughout my life as a kind of basis for my faith and the faith of the people around me. It helps you to keep a finger on the pulse with everything that's going on faith related in the local community. My friend group, whenever you grow in faith and go all in for God, you're going to lose a lot of relationships in your life. That's just the reality of it. But the wonderful thing is, for everyone that you lose, God gives you other people, better relationships, certainly for the new journey that you're embarking on. So I love the community and the friend network, and whenever you're down, people pick you up in all sorts of different ways. There's different people struggling in different ways at the moment, and we're all there for one another. And it's only whenever things go. So I was in Fatima last week for a week pilgrimage, and I got really sick when I was there. I had to go to hospital for like 24 hours in A&E. And there were people from our Presidium messaging me. There's a guy who actually just left our Presidium, basically spent 3 days in adoration praying for me. In the outside world, outside of these sort of circles, that level of love and care is unheard of. So it's not about like, why am I here or whatever. It's more that like, when you're here, it's like cheapers. It's so much better than being away from here, effectively. I feel like a big problem that we have in the world at the moment is that people don't know how to be. If you're Catholic, you know, most Catholics don't even know how that they're meant to be as Catholics. You know, look at like relationships and to do with sexuality and all sorts of different people don't know how they're meant to be. And I feel like by being in the Legion of Mary environment, you learn more and more and more through osmosis, through being around other people who are kind of striving for living a good Catholic life as much as anything. Plus the theory and learning it and just living it, you learn more and more how you're meant to be. And like, as humans, we have a tendency towards sin. There's temptation there. Obviously, the devil's active in our lives constantly trying to make us sin. So like, you know, it's not like you just wake up one day and you have a perfect day. It doesn't work like that. It says in Proverbs, the just man falls 7 times every day. But like, it's about picking up that cross every day, trying to carry it, asking God to carry it and carry you whenever you can't, which is frequently, if not always, and just using the sacraments to get you back on track. You slip, you go to confession, you go to mass, you go to your meeting, you have your conversations with your friends, you do your duty, the whole thing inspires you, and you're just constantly replenishing your stores spiritually, physically, emotionally. I'm wearing my Like to Call and Banis jacket as well. It's a slightly different organization in terms of the faithful or the lay faithful kind of movements, but without the legionary, I really don't know where I would be. I like to look at it as like life. It's like the lifeblood. Your heart beats in twos, and every week you have a meeting for 2 hours, and then you have a duty for 2 hours, basically, and it's like ba-boom, 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 and it just keeps you on track. Just keeps you on track. As long as you just keep showing up, it just keeps you on track. And you'll never veer too far off the path, God willing, if you join and if you stick with the legionary.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.